Okay, we're continuing to talk about equanimity, and I guess what I could say is that it's used in many ways in different Buddhist contexts, but I guess you might categorize them into three main types of equanimity in Buddhism, and one relates to things related to developing concentration or serenity, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And then there's a kind of equanimity that is actually the neutral feeling. So when we have feelings of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, they sometimes use the word equanimity for that neutral feeling. And then there's also an equanimity, immeasurable and equanimity. That's hard to put those two together. Immeasurable equanimity. So the kind that's in the four immeasurables and related to developing bodhicitta. So far what I've seen of the different kinds, they seem to fit in those categories. So that's one thing to know. So when we run across the term, it's good maybe to have an idea of which one they're talking about, but also then there's some ways that they overlap. For example, you could develop single-pointed concentration on equanimity, the kind of the immeasurable equanimity. It's a suitable object to develop single-pointed concentration on. All the four immeasurables are. So when we, in the Sanskrit tradition, when we learn about developing concentration, they talk about 9 different stages of developing calm abiding. And the equanimity that relates to concentration, we don't really have to worry about too much till we get to that 8th level. So this is more like just something to know. But it's good to know, because I think actually there's one way where we can apply this already, maybe in a very gross way. But basically when we learn about developing concentration in the Sanskrit tradition, they talk about 5 faults: laziness, forgetting the instruction, excitement and laxity, non-application of antidotes, and over-application of antidotes. And most of us who have been practicing a while mostly are working on that 3rd one of excitement and laxity, and you spend most of your time really working there, even figuring out what those are and this and that. But as you progress along the stages, there'll come a point where you're applying antidotes gets in the way. So let's go back up a little bit and say, well, what are the antidotes? Well, for laziness, the antidotes is there are 4 antidotes to the kind of laziness that happens: confidence, aspiration, effort, and pliancy. And those are ways that you can study and learn about the particulars of that counteract laziness. And then for forgetting the instruction, there's mindfulness, where helps us to remember what the object is, because when you're working on single-pointed concentration, you have an object that you've already established that you're familiar with, and then you want to bring it back to mind. And then the introspective awareness, that's what helps us counteract the excitement and the laxity, seeing if the mind is scattering away to something that it's attached to, or if it's kind of getting so dull and there's no clarity, things like that. You're kind of, sometimes you're bouncing between these two. And so you use your introspective awareness to kind of be aware of what's going on and make corrections. And then sometimes you don't, the 4th fault is not applying the antidotes, non-application of the antidotes. So then you apply them. That's the countermeasure. But then there comes a point, so now we're probably really seriously at the 8th stage, so we're quite almost there to having full calm abiding, where you actually have over-applied the antidotes. And this is where the equanimity comes in. And what you do there is you actually don't use the antidotes. They say it's like correcting a child who's already behaving. It just disrupts the child. We might be in the habit of, watching a child do this and that and giving instruction. But then the child gets it, and we're in the habit of still giving the instruction, and that's disturbing. And that's what's happening in this kind of situation with developing concentration. So that is one other way that equanimity is used in the Buddhist context. So we'll maybe talk a little bit more about how equanimity is used in concentration in other ways as well, but that's one. So may we all get to the 8th stage so we can figure out really what that means.